helping to spread revolution to other countries. The fire caused by German General Ludendorff's attempt to burn down his neighbor's apartment were beginning to fan the flames to a degree where many other countries were likely to get burned. Lenin's decree on land said, among other things, quote, "Private ownership of land shall be abolished forever. All land shall become the property of the whole people and pass into the use of those who cultivate it." End quote. Then Lenin started spreading the sort of propaganda that most horrified the powers who had been fighting the First World War for more than 3 years by this point. He said, quote, "We shall offer peace for the peoples of all the belligerent countries upon the basis of the Soviet terms. No annexations, no indemnities, and the right of self-determination of peoples. At the same time, according to our promise, we shall publish and repudiate the secret treaties." End quote. The secret treaties were the treaties amongst the Allied powers that were in the files of the Winter Palace that the Bolsheviks had just taken over. By making what was in those files public, the Bolsheviks were pulling the WikiLeaks maneuver, or the Edward Snowden disclosure of their day. By the way, another similarity to the release of the secret treaties and the WikiLeaks Edward Snowden revelations of the more modern era are the newspaper in Britain that released the information to British readers. It was the Manchester Guardian that published in Britain the secret treaty information that Leon Trotsky and the Bolsheviks released to the world. That's the same newspaper in Britain that took the lead almost 100 years later in revealing the Edward Snowden revelations. As historians Michael Nyberg and David Jordan write in their History of the Eastern Front in the First World War, quote, "The Bolshevik leaders had little interest in working with the capitalist Western Allies. They soon published the text of the secret treaties and diplomatic understandings that they found in the Winter Palace and the government archives. These agreements showed French and British support for Russian territorial gain, especially at Turkey's expense with regard to Constantinople. This seemingly revealed what the Bolsheviks had been arguing all along, namely that the war had been fought for imperial interests, not out of self-defense. The publication of these terms embarrassed Allied diplomats, who had claimed in public that no such agreements existed. This also angered the Americans, who had advocated a peace without annexations." End quote. The new Bolshevik government began to tell generals along the entire front with the Germans and Austro-Hungarians and the Turks that they should start making local peace treaties. They called for an armistice for 30 days along the entire front. All of a sudden, Russia was in the process of dropping out of the war. Lenin is supposed to have said a famous quote that aptly describes the situation in November 1917. He said, quote, "There are decades when nothing happens, and there are weeks when decades happen." End quote. And look at the change in fortune for him personally. 6 or 7 months ago, he's living in a rented flat on the second floor next to a sausage factory in Switzerland. Now, by November 1917, he's basically the guy in charge of the largest nation on earth. But this leadership is not